If your windshield washer isn't working when you pull the washer stalk, the motor might be faulty. In this video, I will walk you through the complete process of testing and replacing the windshield washer motor in this 4th generation Kia Sportage. I will also show you how to check the washer circuit with a multimeter, inspect the fuse, and even bench test the old motor to confirm if it's really bad before spending money on a new one. Pop the hood and locate the washer fluid reservoir. Make sure it is not empty, as obviously the fluid won't come out of the nozzles if there isn't any in the reservoir. However, this vehicle has a fluid level sensor, and you will get a low washer fluid warning in the instrument cluster if washer fluid level is too low. The windshield washer motor is located near the bottom of this reservoir. To access it, you will have to remove the engine room undercover, also called splash shield, which requires lifting up the vehicle. Start by parking your vehicle on a flat level surface and engage the parking brake. It's also a good idea to chock the rear wheels for extra safety. Next, position your jack under the front jacking point, which is located under the A pillar on each side of the vehicle, just behind the front wheels. These reinforced pinch weld areas are designed to safely lift the vehicle. Raise the vehicle high enough to give yourself comfortable access underneath. Once lifted, place a pair of jack stands under the same reinforced points on both sides for support. Always use jack stands when working under the vehicle for safety. With the vehicle safely secured, you can now remove the engine room undercover. This protective panel shields the underside of the engine bay from water, dirt, and debris, but it also covers the washer fluid reservoir and the motor area. The splash shield is held in place by 6 plastic clips, 3 near each front wheel, and 11 bolts all around the cover. Start by removing the plastic clips using a clip removal tool or flathead screwdriver. Next, use a 10mm socket to remove all the bolts. There are 4 bolts along the front bumper, 3 in the middle, and 4 towards the rear where it connects to the subframe. After you have removed all the bolts, locate the plastic nut in the center of the undercover. This nut helps hold the panel firmly in place even after all bolts have been taken out. Use a 14mm socket to loosen the nut. Once the nut is free, slide the cover out from under the front bumper. Now slide under the vehicle at this spot. With the panel out of the way, you will now have a clear view of the washer fluid reservoir and the washer motor assembly located near the bottom front corner of the tank. This is the motor for the front windshield washer, as well as the motor for the rear window washer. The rear window washer does not have a separate motor. Disconnect the electrical connector from the motor. Press the tab on the side and pull it apart. Before we replace the motor, it's a good idea to test the motor with an external power source. Also, you should test the electrical connector with a multimeter to make sure it is receiving power. You will notice it has 3 metal points. The single one on the top is the positive for the rear window washer. The one on the bottom right is the positive wire for the front windshield washer. And the bottom left is the ground or negative wire. First, turn on the ignition to power up the washer circuit. Then set your multimeter to DC volts. Touch the pros to the positive of the front washer and to the ground. Then ask someone to pull the washer stalk to activate the windshield washer. You should see 12 volts on the multimeter, which means the circuit is good and the connector is receiving power. Similarly, test the circuit for the rear washer. Touch the pros to the positive of the rear washer and the ground. Then activate the rear window washer. You should see 12 volts here as well. If you do not see any volts on the multimeter, it means there is an issue with the circuit and the motor is not receiving power. In this case, the fuse for the washer motor could be blown. It is located in the interior fuse box under the steering wheel. Pop the cover, then look at the diagram on the back. The washer motor fuse is in the most right column, 3rd fuse from the top. That will be this 15A fuse in the fuse box. You can use a test light to test the fuse and the circuit. But if you don't have a test light, you can pull out the fuse using a fuse puller or a pair of real nose pliers and give it a visual inspection. Make sure the metal strip inside the plastic body is intact and not broken. Now back to the washer motor. If you see 12 volts on the connector and the motor is still not working, then the most likely issue is with the motor itself. Before removing the motor, place a container under the reservoir. Next, pull the hoses off the motor and be prepared for some washer fluid to drain out. Now gently wiggle and pull out the motor. It's clipped in from the top, so you may have to apply a bit of force. Let the fluid drain into the container. Here is a close-up of the motor. This is the part number. Before replacing the washer motor, it's a good idea to check the small filter screen attached to the motor. This filter can get clogged with dirt, debris, especially if older washer fluid has been sitting for a long time. A blocked filter can prevent fluid from reaching the pump, even if the motor is working properly. If cleaning the motor restores the spray, you may not need to replace the motor at all. Before spending money on a new washer motor, it's a good idea to bench test the old motor to make sure if it is working or not. To do this, you will need a 12-volt external power source, like a 12-volt battery. I have this lithium battery pack that I will be using for testing this motor. You will also need a container filled with water deep enough to submerge the lower part of the washer motor. Never run the pump dry as it relies on fluid for lubrication and cooling. Connect the negative wire of your power source to the ground terminal on the motor. Then connect the positive wire to the positive front washer terminal on the motor connector. I think I need a bigger container. Again, negative to the ground terminal and positive to the front washer terminal. If the motor starts spinning and fluid sprays out, it means the motor is good. If the motor does not spin, it means the motor is faulty and needs to be replaced. Once you have tested the front washer function, disconnect the positive wire from the front terminal and connect it to the rear washer terminal instead, keeping the negative wire on the ground. This will test the rear washer side of the same motor. The motor should spin again and spray water from the other outlet port. If it does not pump out fluid, you will have to replace the motor. Take your new washer motor and push it firmly into place in the same opening. Make sure it is clipped in from the top. Reconnect both the hoses to the washer motor housing. Make sure you do not switch the hoses, as one supplies washer fluid to the front windshield and the other sends it to the rear window. If they are connected the wrong way, pulling the front washer stalk could spray fluid on the rear window instead, or vice versa. You can mark one of the hoses with a tape if you do not want to make this mistake. Next, reconnect the electrical connector to the motor. Line up the tab on the connector with the slot on the motor housing and push it in until it clicks securely into place. Make sure everything is seated tightly to prevent leaks. Before reassembling everything, it's a good idea to test the washer system to make sure the new motor works correctly. Refill the washer fluid reservoir with windshield washer fluid. Then turn on the ignition and activate both the front windshield washer and the rear window washer. Check that washer fluid sprays properly from the front and rear nozzles, and listen for smooth, consistent operation of the motor. If both sides spray as expected, the replacement was successful. Also, inspect the area around the washer motor and hoses for any leaks. If you see fluid leaking, remove and reseat the motor or hose securely. Once everything is dry and leak-free, you can proceed to reinstall the engine room undercover. It's a good idea to give it a quick wash before reinstalling it. Once the undercover is clean and dry, slide it carefully back under the front bumper, aligning it with the mounting holes on the frame. Make sure the central area sits correctly around the plastic nut location and that the edges line up evenly on both sides. First, secure the plastic nut in the middle. This helps hold the cover in place while you align the rest of the bolts. Start by loosely threading in the bolts to hold the panel in position. This makes it easier to align all the holes without forcing them. Next, use a 10mm socket to tighten each bolt, but do not over-tighten. They only need to be secured enough to hold the panel firmly. If you have a torque wrench, you can tighten these bolts to 7.8 to 11.8 Nm or 5.7 to 8.6 pound-feet. Once all the bolts are tightened, reinstall the 6 plastic clips, 3 near each wheel. Push each clip straight in until it locks firmly into place. Finally, double check that the undercover sits flush and secure on all sides. Then remove the jack stands and lower the vehicle carefully back to the ground. And that's how you test and replace the windshield washer motor in a 4th generation Kia Sportage. If this video helped you out, give it a like and subscribe to Join for more DIY car repair videos. Thanks for watching.